music playing on this 1991 Chevy Silverado GMT 400. But if you take a look at the radio here, you'll see no switches, no Bluetooth modules, no cigarette FM transmitters here. This is a step-by-step guide on how I did it for about $55. It's a longer video, so feel free to fast forward to whatever part you need. But I did this mod with three main things in mind. I wanted it to auto-connect on ignition and disconnect to save the battery. I wanted no switches, no visible switches. I wanted to keep 100% stock radio look. So first, let's go ahead and get to the bench test of this setup. Alright guys, so now the bench test here. So this is how I actually tested the radio to make sure everything was working instead of crawling around on my truck and trying to deal with wiring. So first off, let's start off with the setup here. So we have our power right here, which is a motorcycle battery charged at 12 volts. Then I have the Bluetooth receiver, which is a DS18 BT2 Bluetooth audio receiver. Got it off Amazon for, I think it was 50 bucks. Moving over to our radio face, this should look familiar. This is an extra one. It's not the one, my truck actually has one too right now. So we're going to be using that to make sure we're getting power. Our CDM, so this is the module that controls the radio. This is actually the radio itself. So it controls that faceplate there. Some old speakers. Those should also look familiar. They're out of the truck. And then lastly, our switch. I have a switch here that's hooked up to ignition, so we can pretend that when we turn this on that this is turning on the truck. All right, so let's move on to our Bluetooth receiver. On the back of the box, it has a really good wiring diagram of everything that we need to connect. This is extremely helpful. So we have the three power wires on the back, or on the right side there. The yellow going straight to battery power. Accessory, which is, we're actually going to be using the ignition, ground, and then the two outputs, the audio and the remote out, which is a remote trigger, usually used for an amplifier like they have there. But we're going to use it, we're going to connect it to the tape-in wire that would replicate turning on the tape deck so that the CDM knows, hey, switch over to tape, or in our case, switch over to Bluetooth. So how is this all connected? It's all connected through the cable here that would be connected to the cassette or EQ. So this should look very familiar. I actually have a spare EQ cassette right here. So this is in a lot of trucks. It was actually in my truck as well. And if we take a look on the back here, we're going to see the same wire. So that's all that wire is. You don't have to use this. You can pin it up yourself using homemade pins or whatever you want. But I had an extra one here from an old cassette player that I used, and that's how I wired this up. So I'm going to post a wiring diagram of all the pins over here in this wire so I can talk to how it's, which each of these wires are going to, which input pin. But it's actually on the back of this CDM as well. So this is what I used here. We can take a look at it. It'll show us what we got. I'm going to put that over here for reference. All right. Let's go back to our Bluetooth receiver. So starting off, the 12 volt, the yellow wire. So this will be going to our battery. So here it is right now, and it is going into the battery pin on this wire. So this would be going out and powering the tape deck. In our case, it's powering our Bluetooth. So what pin is that? That is pin 12 here, battery. All right. Next, the accessory. So this would be the switch. So we could have an external switch connected to another power source, but in our case, we're going to connect it to the ignition wire. So here's the red wire. It is connected to the ignition pin on this cable right here, which goes to the radio face. So we're actually using the power here. So whenever the ignition is turned on, it goes to power the radio face here. It actually sends a switch power to the Bluetooth, so we don't have to have any switches there. Whenever we turn the truck on, the Bluetooth will turn on. Whenever we turn the truck off, the Bluetooth will turn off. All right, pretty cool. I didn't want to have an external switch. There's a lot of guys that do, but I just want it to be based on the ignition power. Next is ground. which is our black cable. I have it going into the ground pin, once again on that tape wire that we have right there, which is an H ground, which is pin number 15. That's where the ground is. All right, now we're moving on to the outputs. So the RCA. So RCAs are a little hard to deal with. I didn't splice them myself. I actually bought a RCA adapter. So it goes from these RCAs coming out of the Bluetooth to this adapter, and then it splits the audio to left and right into pigtails, just like speaker wire type deal. And then I was able to tie them into the audio inputs here, the left and right audio inputs, and then each audio inputs has a ground, and they share the ground that's going over here. So let's look at the pins. So we have left and right audio right there, pin 10 and 11. I'm sorry, pin 9 and 10, and then ground is 11. So 9, 10, and 11 going in there. And then we have the blue wire, the remote trigger out. So this will actually allow it to switch over to Bluetooth. So after everything's turned on, this will allow it to switch over to Bluetooth. So we're going to have this remote out connected to the tape in wire. This is very important if you want to switch over to Bluetooth automatically whenever we start playing music. So we're going to take that remote wire and connect it to the tape in wire, the tape in pin, which is pin number 13 here. So that goes in, it sends out a signal saying, hey, switch over to Bluetooth. Used to have, if this was a tape player, it would send over that tape signal saying, hey, switch over. So whenever you put a tape in, it switches over to the tape. So that's the really cool part, buying a Bluetooth that has a remote trigger option. That's very key for this mod here. All right, so that is the setup for the Bluetooth receiver. Now, if you do want to bench test, I'll show you how I have mine connected up here. It's pretty simple. So once again, moving over to this side, to the pins here, starting off with pin number 10. We're on the right side now. We have the battery. That's connected to the battery on the positive side. And then we have the ignition, which is pin number 9. So that's this green one right here. I have it going out to our switch here, currently turned off, and then also connected to the battery. And then we have pin number 5, which is the ground, which is this red one right here going into black, and it is connected to the negative side. So that's all the power set up there. It's only 3 wires. It's pretty easy to set up if you have a basic understanding of electricity. Then we have our speakers. The speakers were kind of hard to jam in there, so I have 2 speakers there, one representing the front right, I believe. Nope, sorry, front left, and then one representing the rear right. So I have them offset there so I can check my fader and balance controls on my radio. So the pins are right here. Let's take a look. So we have left front, and then left front positive. So left front negative, left front positive. That's pin 1 and 2 respectively. And then for the other side, we have our other speaker connected to rear right negative and rear right positive. So that's where this one's connected to, is up at this top part here. Those 2 pins are right there. Rear right positive, rear right negative, and then front left positive, front right left negative right here connected to the speaker. And you can set that up however you want. You could connect 1 speaker if you want, or you could just do this in your truck if you are pretty confident that you're going to wire it right the first time. So now I'm going to switch over to my GoPro so that I can connect, or have my phone ready to connect to Bluetooth so we can test this setup. All right, we are ready to test it. We got the phone ready here. We can see that nothing is connected to Bluetooth right now. Now we're going to turn on the ignition switch, and it's going to turn on our radio and our Bluetooth, because remember, we have the ignition cable going in to the ignition pin for the radio. So we're going to turn on the truck, mimicking the ignition right here with this switch. Okay, we see the radio come on and connecting Bluetooth. So the Bluetooth is now active. But we can see, hey, the radio is still on. We got static coming across. Oh, there's some song. So in order to switch over to Bluetooth, it's pretty simple. So we have that remote out, so as soon as we start playing a song, it's going to send that signal and let it know, hey, we're putting a tape in. But right now we're starting our Bluetooth. So let's go to Spotify and press play. And we're going to see it switch over to Bluetooth. And there you go. We have Bluetooth input going in there. No switches, nothing. Remember, this is just mimicking our ignition. So what's really cool, when I pause my audio, it switches back over to radio. I want to play it again. It switches back to Bluetooth. Not bad. So whenever we install this in the truck, it's not going to have any switches or anything. Now, whenever I turn off my ignition, turn off my truck, watch as I turn it off, it turns off the radio, and then it's going to disconnect from Bluetooth. And there you go. So we just turned off the truck, and now the Bluetooth goes to sleep, so we're not draining our battery here. So I like this setup. We're not going to have any switches in there. The only switch is going to be the ignition as we're turning on the truck. Alright, so now we're going to start connecting our wires here from our Bluetooth to our cable assembly here that will be connected to the CDM in the truck. So first off, we're going to start with our battery constant, which is pin number 12 on the CDM. So we're going to begin by taking these two wires and wrapping them around each other. Like so. Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to crank up the soldering iron. So be ready for us. We're going to put these in our helping hand. There we go. Holding it there for us. Alright, so now we have it set up. Our soldering iron is warm. Let's get some solder ready. I don't need this much. Let's make that a little bit smaller. There we go. Alright, now we're going to warm up the cable. So I'm not a very good person at soldering. I'm definitely a novice. And we're going to apply. Did we just do it again? Yes, we did. Ooh, no, not hot. Okay. I don't know why I reacted like that. First, we need to put our heat shrink on, our heat shrink. So let's do that before we get to soldering. So let's take this guy, slide it on. There we go. Guess he's up a little bit better anyways. Winding all the strands together. Alright. Now let's place them. There. Made the same mistake twice. Now let's try this. Heat up our wires. As much contact with the tip as we can. And place the solder over our wires. Nice strong connection that we can use. There we go. Turn that down in the meantime. Let it harden up a little bit. And let's take a look. Let's give it a good tug. Make sure it's a nice connection. It's good enough for me. Let's make sure it's cool. We're going to slide this over. We're going to apply some heat to it. Make this heat wrap. Let's get my Dremel heat. Here we go. Alright, finally got the old Dremel started, so putting on a little bit of heat. Putting on a lot of heat actually. And put some heat on here. Alright, first one is complete. Yay, that was difficult. Now we're going to continue on and do the rest. Alright, next we're going to do the remote cable. This is the blue wire here on the Bluetooth cable assembly. It's going to be this light blue wire here. Light blue, which is pin number 13. It's right next to the battery cable that we just did. Helping hands. Alright, she's warm. Looks much nicer. Just take a close look at that one. So here. Complete. Ignition. This one's going to be a little bit tricky, the ignition cable here, because it's not going. I mean, I'm going to use a wire in here, but then it's going to be going to my radio ignition port. So I'm actually going to use a wire on here. Which one did I use? The gray one. This solid gray one right here. I'm going to use it, and I'm going to put a jumper on this side that's going to plug into the radio. It's a little bit different than the rest of them. Well, let's do this side first. So I'll solder this into the switch on this gray cable, and then this side's going to have a jumper on it and go to the ignition. I'm going to be doing both sides here. Wires out of the way. Crank up the iron, and let's do this again. All right, we are good. Let's do this. That one's not as pretty in my opinion. Let's take a look at it. Maybe that'll get the job done. There we go. There you go. Alright. We got 3 of them done here. Now what do we have here? We have the black, which will go to the ground. I forgot which one the ground was. Let's take a quick look. Each ground is 15. Let's see here. There is the black one right there. Okay. Makes more sense. So this will be the black wire on the assembly to the black wire on the Bluetooth. Easy day. And I already got the heat shrink on here. So I was smart for once and did that earlier. There we go. All right, another successful here. Let's take a look. Ground cable. And let's see, end result. Yep. So we got our ground, we got our ignition, we got our remote, we got our constant. So now we're ready to go to audio. So now we're ready to go to our audio, our RCA cables here. So let's start with our ground. We're gonna put these two together. We're gonna be using only one audio ground on our cable assembly here. So I'm just gonna get these together. Cable here. Let's go ahead and slide this on. If we can fit it over these two. And cut this down a little bit. See if it'll even fit. There we go. The ground is set. Excellent. All right, now we're going to move on to the audio. So let's do this red one here first. I'm going to clip it a little bit more. And this is the red one. I think that's right audio. Let's take a look. Right audio is pin number 10, which is 1, 2, 3, which is the red one. So let's do red to red here. So red comes out and turns into white here. which is pin number 10. The cable assembly. Let's move our other cables out of the way here. 800. Wire heat. And smooth, very smooth. Look at that one. That one's pretty good. That's probably the best one so far, I would have to say. Right out here. Alright, same drill. Slide this over. And then we will do the heat shrink. Alright. And last cable for the assembly. To the left audio, which is another black cable on the cable assembly. Left audio right here. Let's go ahead and give us a little bit more lead. There we go. $800. All right. And back down. Once again, I think it's another beautiful one. I don't even need to bring that up there. Nice. Okay. Let's get more efficient at this as we go. All right. We got to every wire that we need. So we got every wire coming off of the Bluetooth. Let's go back to one here. Yep, there we go. Every wire coming off, connected. Now we have to do the little jumper here for the ignition switch, which is this gray cable here. So I'm going to go ahead and knock this out and show you what I had planned. So this is once again just a random cable that I chose and was not using on the cable assembly. It's for the dimmer. Once again, if you're doing this exact same thing, you can use any cable, any wire, any pin that you're not using. This is for the dimmer, which is number 14. So let's go ahead and let me find that jumper. I don't know where I put it. This is what I came up with. It's for the jumper. It's just a little cable that has this pin that actually fits pretty good in the little port here. This little radio hole, the ignition, just kind of slides in there. Just jam it in there and it can hold like that. So that's what I'm going to try, see if it works. So now I'm going to put it on the end of the cable here. It'd be sad if I just like melted all this crap all of a sudden. So I left this in there to show you the mistake I made. I didn't successfully wrap the wires tight enough, so the heat never transferred successfully, so I couldn't melt the solder, and this is a mistake that I learned from. Sure. 800. Much more tightly woven now. Be able to get much better heat transfer here. Pretty dang good. Took a while. I don't know if it's a steel wire or what. Maybe the thicker gauge stuff. Doesn't take so long. Just get it over there. And heat. Water. There we go. Our little jumper. This is going to connect into our radio ignition. Alright, so we're about ready to install our Bluetooth transmitter in here. So we got it all hooked up. Ended up doing some work right here. Putting some electrical tape and then some zip ties here to hold it all together so this electrical tape doesn't come off immediately. So we got our cable assembly on here with our jumper. So let's go over what it's going to look like in the truck. So here's our CDM right here. It's going to be sitting like this underneath our radio. So this is going to be your gas pedal about right here, and it's going to be sitting up in here. So the ports we're going to be attaching to are on the bottom here. So we have the radio cable going in right here. That's where our jumper is going to go on pin 4. And then our cable assembly is going to be fed through the ashtray compartment and then plugged in right there, like this. So let's get to it. Alright, so we have the truck here. So the hard part's going to be feeding it and finding a place to put all of this behind the ashtray. So I might have to go in through the dash. I'm not exactly sure yet what that's going to look like. So let's see what we have here. All right, so we end up getting it successfully in there. You can work it further back in there, but right now I'm just going to leave it right there, our ashtray hidden. And then you can see our cable comes out down here. Right at the bottom of our CDM. Now we can just plug it up and should be ready to go at that point. All right, so let's get our jumper plugged in to, it's going to be number 4 here, which is this red cable right here, this red pin. Let's get that in there forcefully. Jam it in there. There we go. All right, plug this bad boy in. And then we will plug in the cable assembly. There you have it, all plugged in, ready to go. Now we only got one more thing, and that is to plug the battery back in and test this. All right, I got my key. You stick it in the ignition. I'm going to pull out my Bluetooth device right now, so I have nothing connected to it. Let's go ahead and turn it on. And what do you know? Active device. Let's turn our radio on. Let's find a station. Okay, so we got a radio station on there. Now let's go ahead and play some music over Spotify and see what we got here. Uh-oh, I don't hear any music. That's a problem, I would say. It switches over like there is something playing, but there's nothing playing. Odd. Well, I guess we will start troubleshooting. Alright, so we're back to the bench test after our failure in the truck. So got our Bluetooth hooked up again. Got everything hooked up to our cable assembly. We have a radio face here we're going to use to test this. Same setup as before. I'm going to go ahead and connect the ground. Alright, our radio turns on. Make sure the ignition. Alright, ignition switch there, it worked. So ignition switch on, right here. Alright, we got radio. See, yep, Bluetooth is connecting. We got a speaker hooked up. Let's see if we can get Spotify going again. So it is working on this one. As you can hear it. Alright, so maybe it's a CDM. I don't know. That is odd. It's not working in the one in the truck. But we can put this CDM over in the truck and see what happens. Alright, so now we're going to take out this CDM so we can put the new one in. So I already took out 2 screws. There's one here at the bottom, 7mm. One at the front behind the ashtray, 7mm. And then there's one back here on the firewall. And that's going to undo, that's all 3 screws. And now you can lower this down. And then I already undid the wires for our Bluetooth and our radio here. So I'm gonna, if you reach on top, there's 3 connections for the speakers and the power input. I'm gonna undo those now. So just push tabs and then the antenna. Now it's ready to go out. Now we're going to take off this bracket and put it on our other CDM. Alright, so now we're going to take the bracket. What do we got here? What is it, baby girl? I'm going to go back inside. Oh, it's an 8. Nice. Something different. Need this piece too. Let's see if we can just slide it off. Maybe a screwdriver. Is it, girl? You need to go back in. Alright, let's see if we can get it off with a screwdriver. Yep, looks like it's sliding off. And we'll just slide it on to our new one. Perfect. Alright, so that part. Now we need to get this one off. Let's see if it's also an 8mm. What do you know, it is. I like it when things fit and you don't have to dig through a million wrenches. It's kind of annoying that they didn't make it a 7 when everything else is a 7 in there. But these CDMs are used in a bunch of different vehicles, so maybe it does match up with some other car. So same thing, take the bracket off and the nut. Get our screwdriver and slide it off here. There we go, voila. Set that over the side, we'll investigate it later. And slide this on. And then put the nut back on. Like that. like this. Let's go with these Chevys. So, all right, ready to put this back in and plug it up. Let's put it in the truck. What are you doing, girl? All right, new CDM incoming. Let's go ahead and get it plugged in. We'll put one bolt in just so we can test this before we do everything and get it plugged back in. I want to find out it doesn't work as well for some reason. So let's just plug that in. I'll work it up here, plug in the top. And these are all keyed, so you can't really mess them up. All of these on top here, just so you can take a look. The blue one goes here, and then the power one goes into the only place that it fits. I'll just slide right in there, nice and easy. The antenna slides in easy as well. All right, let's just place one of these real quick, just for some support. There we go. All right. All right. So we got our Bluetooth again. Let's go ahead, before I even stick it back there, I'm just gonna plug it in like this and see if it works. And then once again, it's gonna be plug number 4 for the ignition. There we go. All right, let's battery back on and see what we get. All right, we got test number 2. New CDM installed. Let's take a look. So we have no Bluetooth right now. Let's put the accessories on. All right, we got active Bluetooth connection. Let's go back to Spotify. Let's turn the radio on first. That's weird, it doesn't even try to find anything. Well, we have music. The radio does work now. Nope, looks like it's working now. Oh, I guess the CDM was the problem here. What is it, girl? Do you want to get up here in the truck? Alright, let's get it buttoned up and get her working. What do you want, girl? You want to come up in the truck with me? Come here. There you go. You like the old truck, don't you? So here you go. Here it is, playing Bluetooth with no switches or anything. We finally got it. We're back to the beginning of this video. We got it down here in the ashtray. Later on I could try to put it a little bit more, but I really don't plan on using the ashtray anyways. So automatically connects on ignition. I can switch the radio by just pausing it. And I learned a lot here. I troubleshooted quite a bit, made a lot of mistakes, so hopefully this helps you out and you can learn something from it and not make the mistakes that I did.